The driver turns around. He says, "Don't do it, buddy." He says, "You're a young man. You got your whole boy party ahead of you." Hello, everybody. It's Boy Party. I'm Lucy, and I'm joined by Shane. And this week we're discussing Faye, Dunaway, William Holden, Peter Finch, and Robert Duvall in Network by Paddy Chayefsky. It's Boy Party. We're mad as hell, and we're not going to Boy Party anymore. Hello, everybody. It's the Network episode of Boy Party. My name's Lucy, and I'm joined by Shane. Shane, what? Shane is my number one star,
and I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. I've been saying that all day. How do I forget the line?
You've been saying the line all day.
Yeah.
You've just been saying it in the office.
Yeah.
And
anytime anyone sends me an email, I'm like, I'm mad as hell.
And have the police been contacted? Have you been warned about your?
No, but there has been multiple assassination attempts on me.
Multiple assassination attempts on you. Oh my God. Well, folks, we're here to discuss a terrific movie. I think funny we're accidentally doing two great films 2 weeks in a row. What are the odds?
Yeah, usually we don't do that.
Yeah, we literally last week discussed Billy Wilder. We talked about how Billy Wilder directed William Holden in a bunch of movies, and here we are talking about William Holden on the podcast. Network by Paddy Chayefsky. I've watched this film twice in the past 3 weeks. I obviously have seen it a couple times before as well, so I am so high on this movie and how good it is. I just want to talk about Network. I want to talk about all these actors. I want to talk about every element of this film and how much I love it. So we're very excited to jump in.
Why do you keep saying Paddy Chayefsky?
Because the name of the movie in the opening credits is Network by Paddy Chayefsky. That's how the title comes up.
Interesting.
This is a very important part of this film.
Yeah, I was being confused.
Is that it is like the only film I can think of where the title is listed as Network by a screenwriter, and the screenwriter isn't the director either.
Oh, okay.
But Paddy Chayefsky is a screenwriter with incredible authorial command, and obviously something we're going to discuss a lot in this episode, perhaps to the exhaustion of many people, is the massive influence of Chayefsky and this film on one Mr. Aaron Sorkin. Unfortunately, Shane and I are simply too into the Aaron Sorkin shtick from an analytical point of view, as well as an enjoyment one, to not draw many parallels between this film and his work. So we'll be doing that in due course. But it is his Network by Paddy Chayefsky and directed by Sidney Lumet, one of the greatest directors in American history. I would say Sidney Lumet is deserves the praise and love that many filmmakers get and never quite received it. You could say somewhat the same of William Holden, but the difference is that William Holden got his Oscar and Sidney Lumet died Oscarless.
That's
outrageous. I'd say that him and Hitchcock are the two best directors to never win a competitive Oscar. It's insane. He is a director who turned 100 this summer, which is the reason Network was out on re-release. It's the reason that I wanted to talk about the film, and it's a great reason to discuss how Sidney Lumet was so great. It's obviously, Boy Party's not necessarily a director-focused podcast, so we'll dig a little bit into our 4 stars here, but I do want to talk about the film as a whole a bit more so than we probably usually would, because it's so fucking interesting. So you've seen Network twice now, I suppose.
Twice now.
But you probably, as I did,
I had forgotten an awful lot of it when I watched it the second time.
Yeah.
Did I see it in cinema the first time?
I don't think so.
No, we didn't see it in cinema.
No. I saw this film in the cinema the first day I lived in Dublin. My first ever day moving away from home. I went to see Network, and I was very homesick and lonely and overwhelmed. And let me tell you,
I cannot think of
anything worse. This film has an
Oops.
incredibly pessimistic worldview. If you are frightened by the big city you've just moved to and have no friends, I don't think that this film about sullen, world-weary TV executives, especially when I was about to start studying media communications in college, this film about completely
just being consumed in your work, and not being able to maintain
lost
relationships
in the modern city, not able to maintain relationships, and completely consumed by cynicism and profit staring you in the face. It's not a particularly good, uplifting thing to watch on a day like that. But anyway, last time you saw it, what were you saying?
First time I saw it, I remember very little from the first time I saw it.
Yeah.
I just thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
But on rewatch, it is outstanding.
Yes. I wonder, I don't know. I feel like this is probably not the case, but I wonder, has this film become like actually more kind of shockingly
Relevant?
relevant? Like I feel like it's always been relevant, but maybe because obviously,
Yeah,
like,
obviously since like 2016.
but even like the peak of the boom of reality TV and sort of shit news conversation, news ranty shows in the 2000s and the rise of Fox News and all of that.
Yeah, the movement from kind of like factual to entertainment or whatever.
Yeah, like it's very obviously dealing with that. But I feel like now the people in this film are now running the world in a literal sense, in politics and in power, in a sense that maybe they only figuratively ran the world as TV channel people a couple of years ago. So I think now you watch this film and you're like, Jesus Christ, this is depicting the temperaments and the morals that have completely taken over how the world works in a way that is both alarming and also very, very funny.
Like, I think one thing was that you pointed out before, that like kind of how outrageous the response was to Howard Beale's initial show, and you'd be like, people won't be sticking their head out the windows and shouting.
Yeah.
But I think it's not like, it is a bit excessive, but in a sense it is true.
Yeah.
Like you see the way things spiral out on.
Of course. No, the sticking the head out the window shouting is just Twitter.
Yeah.
That's what that is. But yes, as you're saying, we're dealing now with a crazy increase in this country and in our British neighbors of people responding to the news by starting basically race riots and shit like this. And there's becoming a very alarming reactionary impulse among certain elements of society like I've never seen this century, of just like, I see something on my phone and I'm going to start setting fire to buildings and stuff. Which is like maybe something that we didn't take seriously as our generation until the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Because we never really lived through, like, I guess we came in just after Northern Ireland was kind of being set on fire constantly.
Yeah.
So maybe we lived in a bit of naivety and bliss of thinking that this isn't how people responded to events.
Yeah, like the way this translates to the modern day more is like, they're so obsessed with ratings, getting their share. Yeah. It's just kind of your historic representation of what algorithms are now.
Yeah.
Like, it's engagement farming, and
the fact that they also they sell out in every direction.
Yes,
that
it's completely politically directional film.
They couldn't care less. They put this guy on TV to say whatever he wants in any direction. Yeah. Obviously, it reaches a point where he pisses off the wrong people, and he has to be. But
he ultimately flips once he's shouted at.
Yeah, exactly. He flips once he's shouted at, and then they simultaneously, the network are simultaneously programming this ultra leftist propaganda show, the Mao Zedong Hour, with this
ecumenical liberation
army. Basically filming their own terrorism and kidnappings and
using
putting
it on TV.
Yeah. So like, they're willing to give airtime to extremities on every side as long as it gets eyeballs. And actually, I'd say that would almost be refreshing nowadays if there was something like the Ecumenical Liberation Army being put on TV. I feel like now it's there's not even a gap in the market.
That,
yeah, I mean, obviously there is on the internet. There's a lot of radical stuff that's popular on all sides. But I guess I only seem to ever get exposed to the right wing shit, and everyone who agrees with me is on a much smaller scale.
Yeah, like even the Joe Duffys aren't having communists on.
Yeah, I genuinely don't know what the most mainstream equivalent of the Mao Zedong Hour show would be now, other than like
Vincent Brown,
Cenk Uygur or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, those aren't real leftists, and they're not radical. But the plot of the film is basically that it kind of goes off in two directions. Basically, Howard Beale, played by Peter Finch, gets fired at the very start of the film. And he is a newsreader, and he's like a very boring standard newsreader. His ratings are down. He gets fired from the network. He, on his last show, he goes on TV, or not his last show.
Sorry, does he get fired? Is he retiring, or is he getting fired?
No, he gets fired.
Oh, he gets
because
fired
his ratings are down. But he gets fired in like a sense where you think everything's going to move on and be fine.
Yeah, it's like he's old. He's worked there for a long time.
He goes on TV after he gets fired, and he says, "Oh, next Tuesday, tune in. I'm going to kill myself live on air."
Hysterical.
And there's like 5 minutes of everyone going, "What did he just say? Did you hear that?"
Like, nobody is listening to him
Nobody's
at the beginning
listening to him
because
he's so boring.
He's so boring.
Yeah.
It's the funniest thing.
It's fantastic.
It's so hilarious.
So they are like, you can't say that. You're fired again. But then Max, his sort of producer, the guy who runs the network, played by William Holden, is like, no. Let him do his last show. He promises he won't kill himself. And then he comes on TV and goes, I'm sorry I said I wanted to kill myself. It's just because of all this bullshit. And he starts just talking about bullshit. And this is when the audience starts to buy what he's selling. The ratings go up, and then Faye Dunaway and Robert Duvall basically get involved. Robert Duvall on a corporate level is just basically is kept happy as long as the ratings are high. Faye Dunaway has this sort of incredibly
ambitious personality.
Yeah, she's got a huge imagination. She's from the entertainment side of TV, not the news side. She basically comes in, sees this newsreader, and decides to turn him into entertainment. And in the process, basically like destroys the entire news concept of news, because they let his entertainment show take over where the news should have been. And William Holden kind of half fights back against her impulses, but then also is having an affair with her. And also he's old and he's just kind of given up.
And he's friends with Howard Beale.
And he's very good friends with Howard Beale, and he just wants Howard Beale to have a job. So there's a couple of interesting overlapping motivations here. Howard Beale ultimately is just crazy. He's crazy and he's suicidal.
He's having religious visions.
He's having a nervous breakdown, and he's seeing God, and he's hearing things being whispered to him in his dreams. And he's going on TV and saying these things that initially, if you listen to them on surface level, sound sort of prophetic, and they keep referring to him as the modern day prophet and all this. But if you kind of pause and listen, he's kind of just talking like stupid pseudo-political jargon nonsense. And
like it's all just, ooh, look at this, no solutions.
Yeah. He keeps just going like, the politicians.
How can they do this to us?
How can they do this? You want them to buy, they want you to buy things. They want you to watch things. They want you to eat things. He sounds like the screenslaver in Incredibles 2.
Yeah.
He has no real ideology, only complaints. And he's just giving out, and he's anti-establishment, he's anti-this, anti-that, and people are screaming out their windows, I'm mad as hell, I'm not gonna take it to work. Because all it is it's misdirected anger, and it's anger that's kind of going in every direction. Like my favorite little graph, boycotts don't work like this, arrows all pointing in different directions. They work like this, all the arrows pointing in on one thing. Howard Beale's anger is like directed off in every
his arrows
direction.
are everywhere.
So that's the film, and it basically kind of absorbs all of this satirical stuff about TV being crazy and stupid and dumb. There's a whole subplot about the Mao Zedong hour that I think is fucking hysterical.
So funny.
Then you've got a romance going on between Dunaway and William Holden that is mostly played for laughs, and also just kind of to demonstrate how pathetic these people are, and how their priorities in life are so fucked up. His wife finds out, she leaves him. There's great scenes with him and his wife. Then there's just stuff with Robert Duvall, like kind of snapping at people about ratings and whatever. And then it kind of culminates in this absolutely extraordinary scene where Howard Beale is sort of sent to a dark boardroom to be confronted with the most terrifying.
Yes, one of his rants verged into, let's stop the merger between our network and another network.
And Arabs buying.
Yes, Saudi money was going to buy it.
Saudi money. So he gets confronted with Ned Beatty, great actor, who is this perfect round face, big red rosy cheeks, an enormous mustache, and he basically turns all the lights off, but a little lamp in front of him.
No, it's a full table of lamps. He's at the end of a boardroom table, and it's like a runway to an airplane.
Yes,
and he's just there down the end, kind of on the side of the shot.
Yeah. And he talks to Howard as if he is a preacher at a pulpit. And he gets
directing airplanes.
Yeah, he goes on this like 5-minute rant about how there are no governments, there are no societies, there are only corporations.
There is simply the American dollar.
And how Howard has messed with the fundamental forces of nature.
Yeah.
And it is on the one hand reminiscent of many a conversation that I've had where people have tried to stop me from challenging the system in work environments, particularly in sort of universities where you're up against a very old generational system and you're like, hey, I don't think that's right. And they're like, how could you ever say that? But also it is a spiritual vision. It is like meeting the devil incarnate in person. And
the most incredible bit of this is that every probably 30 seconds it cuts to Howard Beale and he is couldn't be more further sunk into his chair.
Yeah, he looks increasingly more and more terrified. And the entire film, Howard Beale has been such a fucking bombastic, big public speaker, confident man. He talks like this, and then suddenly he literally gets smaller and smaller, sinking into his chair. His mouth is agape, and he's just lying there, looking like he's about to be sick.
He's a completely shallow character with no ideas.
Absolutely. And it's kind of incredible that Peter Finch makes him so. I feel like he is actually very likable at the start of the film.
Yeah.
And you go along with him on his crazy insanity journey because he is so charming.
And like even in meetings and stuff at the start, he's like acting normal.
Yeah.
But he fully leans into the prophetic stuff once people start calling for prophet. And
like he's a handsome, well-spoken guy. Yeah. And I think you initially do kind of like him and go along with him, which makes it all the more powerful when it clicks that he's crazy and you shouldn't listen to anything he says. Peter Finch is a great actor. He was Australian. He was in the Australian Army. Australian raised English parents, I believe, or the other way around. I can't remember. But he was in the Australian Army, and he is a very specific type of like British Australian actor that like doesn't really exist anymore. I don't know. He reminds me a lot of guys like Rex Harrison and stuff from the time. But I never saw him in anything until I saw him in this. Which I'd say is the case for most people, but he's got some fantastic other performances. He is in this film called Lost Horizon, which is so this is another funny connection to last week's episode. Last week I talked about how The Apartment was adapted into a musical of Burt Bacharach and Hal David songs. And wouldn't you believe that Peter Finch was in Lost Horizon, which is another musical of Burt Bacharach and Hal David songs.
Oh, very good.
And Lost Horizon is pretty nuts. It is about like a group of tourists or travelers who are fleeing a revolution, and they land in the Himalayas and they go to Shangri-La and they get immersed in like the spirituality of Shangri-La, and it's like American actors and European actors, but they're all singing Burt Bacharach songs in Shangri-La. It's crazy. And Peter Finch co-stars with the great Norwegian actress Liv Ullmann, who once held me in her arms when I was a baby. So that is my Peter Finch connection. Another Peter Finch connection is that he starred in the film A Girl with Green Eyes, which was 1964, and that's based on an Edna O'Brien novel and was written by Edna O'Brien, and she of course died this week, the Irish author. And Girl with Green Eyes stars Finch and Rita Tushingham, and Rita Tushingham plays a young Irish woman called Katie Brady, living in inner city South Dublin by the canal, down by the Accenture building. And Pepper Canister Church features a lot in the film. Yeah. And Peter Finch is just like hanging out in Dublin and playing an English guy who basically is just a bit of a nonce. Like he's in his 50s and he's going out with like an 18-year-old, But Peter Finch, very, very convincing in roles like that, to his credit as an actor. He's also in The Nun Story with Audrey Hepburn. And, I really need to see him in a lot more stuff. I've seen him in like 3 or 4 films, and I would like to see him in everything. I think he's wonderful. I think he's really great, and I don't know how well this role would work with another actor. Here's some fun facts for you. In his notes, Paddy Chayefsky jotted down his ideas about casting for Howard Beale. He envisioned Henry Fonda, Cary Grant, Jimmy Stewart, and Paul Newman.
Don't we all?
He wrote to Paul Newman, said, I don't know how Paddy Chayefsky talked. Let me just make a guess. You and a very small handful of other actors are the only ones I can think of with the range for this part. Lumet wanted Henry Fonda, whom he had worked several times, but Fonda declined the role, said it was too hysterical. Jimmy Stewart found the script unsuitable, objecting to the strong language. Ugh, what a nerd. They considered real-life newscasters Walter Cronkite and John Chancellor, but neither of them were open to the idea. And then they offered it to George C. Scott, said no. Oh, yeah. Glenn Ford said no. George C. Scott from Hardcore. And William Holden, who turned it down but took the role of Max. For the role.
This feels a little bit too modern for Jimmy Stewart, Cary Grant, nearly.
Like they've been quite old. This is Jimmy Stewart and Cary Grant in their like they're the same age as Peter Finch. Should be like late 50s, early 60s.
Yes.
I'm sure the Cary Grant version of this, he's the one there that the most to me sounds like it would have been amazing. I don't think Henry Fonda in network would feel special, because I think Henry Fonda is always doing this type of thing.
Like Henry Fonda could do the William Holden character more.
He could.
So
I mean, I think William Holden, like ultimately, I think this is one of the best cast films ever made, so we don't really need to be discussing alternates, but it is fun to think about. But I feel like the Cary Grant idea there would be more unique and original and fresh. and he could have done it. Like, and I feel like the other guys maybe don't make as much sense to me. For the Max,
I don't know if I could believe that Cary Grant was a boring newscaster that was getting kicked off the air for poor ratings.
Right, he's just too much of a movie star. A
little bit.
Whereas Peter Finch is like a British proper
He's a
actor.
boring
Like
British guy.
Yeah, true. Yes, I think his Britishness, I know he's Australian, but his British Australianness shines through, even though the character is technically American, to make him seem like a little bit boring. So for Max, Chayefsky had initially listed Walter Matthau and Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman is like way too young. He was in his 40s then. What the fuck? Like he's too young. Walter Matthau would have been great. But I think William Holden's amazing. Producers were wary that Finch, an Australian, would not be able to sound authentically American, and they made him audition. Faye Dunaway wanted Robert Mitchum to play Max, but Lumet said that he was not sufficiently urbane. For the role of Diana, Chayefsky had thought of Candice Bergen, Ellen Burstyn, Natalie Wood. Weird. The studio suggested Jane Fonda. Lumet wanted to cast Vanessa Redgrave, but Chayefsky did not want her. Lumet argued that she was here we go. Nina. Lumet argued he thought she was the greatest English-speaking actress in the world. This is Vanessa Redgrave. Yeah. But Chayefsky, a supporter of Israel, objected on the basis of her support of the Palestinian Liberation Organization. Lumet said, "Paddy, that's blacklisting," to which Chayefsky replied, "Not when a Jew does it to a Gentile." Faye Dunaway was cast in September 1975. That is really interesting, that in this film that features all of this radical leftist stuff, that Paddy Chayefsky blocked Vanessa Redgrave out of because she supported Palestine. I think the left-wing element of this is being mocked. Yeah, I do think that would suggest to me that it was. Paddy Chayefsky was not left-wing.
Because there's too many scenes where the response of like the Ecumenical Liberation Army are just to shout Marxist jargon and even point that out, and it's just kind of...
It's unfortunate considering that they're like the only black characters in the film as well. Like, I like it. I think that's a good subplot, but you're right that like if we take a step back and think about who Paddy Chayefsky was trying to side with here, it is a pity that the only black characters in the film are maybe depicted as a little bit OTT.
Yeah, they're hardcore leftists and
and they're militant.
They're militant.
Yeah.
And I think that wasn't being presented as a positive thing at the time.
Yes, no, I agree.
Look at these silly leftists.
I think it's interesting if we do the Aaron Sorkin comparison that he sort of seems to be trying to model himself off of Paddy Chayefsky in his Zionism. It says Robert Duvall was cast because Duvall was cast and he saw the character as a vicious President Ford type. And Ned Beatty was cast Robert Altman's suggestion, and Beatrice Straight was cast as Max's wife, and she wins an Oscar. This film won 3 of the 4 acting Oscars that year. Best Actress for Dunaway, Best Actor for Finch, and Best Supporting Actress for Beatrice Straight. As I said to you, this was a time when lead and supporting were taken very seriously. If you made this today, Peter Finch would be getting a supporting actor nomination, and Beatrice Straight would not be in the conversation at all. Like co-leads like Peter Finch is in this are now considered supporting. Like I can assure you that Brad Pitt is in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood a lot more than Peter Finch is in Network, and he's considered supporting and Peter Finch was considered a lead. Because I guess there were just fewer movies, so like you could put Peter Finch as a lead because you're like, he's important to the plot, and you could put William Holden in as a lead. And I don't know if this happened, I'll check, but they could both get nominated. And yes, they did both get nominated, you know? Like it was very, very doable that they would both get nominated. Network was nominated for Best Picture, which it lost to Rocky. I'm not going to go through the others because I don't want to spoil the box office. But Finch wins Best Actor. He beats Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver and Sylvester Stallone in Rocky. I mean, those are 3 incredibly iconic performances. It's funny that Peter Finch is by far the least iconic of those 3. Yeah. Faye Dunaway wins Best Actress. She beats Sissy Spacek in Carrie, also incredibly iconic. And Ned Beatty was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Yeah. Incredible.
Good.
Loses to Jason Robards in All the President's Men, which I have no issue with. Playing the character that Tom Hanks played in The Post. And then Beatrice Straight wins Supporting Actress and beats Jodie Foster in Taxi Driver and Piper Laurie in Carrie. What a great year. So that's the Peter Finch side of it. Obviously, what's the name of the character?
Howard Beale.
Howard Beale's deal is that the Beale deal is that he collapses on the stage at the end of every
he
rant.
goes on a rant for 10 minutes and then just falls down.
Yeah. Now, sadly, Finch died by collapsing of a heart attack in a hotel lobby very shortly after the film was made, which is kind of a sad...
within a year, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, I think something like... Yeah, it must have been because he won the Oscar posthumously.
Yeah.
Which is a sad kind of parallel to the character. But anyway, it almost is one of these performances that becomes... It obviously is one of these performances that becomes more legendary because the guy died. It's crazy that the first two actors to win Oscars posthumously were both Australian men. Mm-hmm. Him and Heath Ledger. Both kind of performances that I think are more special because the actor didn't get to stick around to receive,
to be recognized.
Yeah, it kind of feels as though like you put something incredible on film and then you were gone before everyone got to see it, and it's sort of like, I guess it feels that you have to be more positive about it because you're like, well, they never got to hear the praise, so I need to just shout it from the rooftops. But there was a stage version of this in 2017 with Bryan Cranston as Howard Beale and Michelle Dockery as Diana, and then it opened in Broadway in 2018 and Cranston came back, but Tatiana Maslany played Diana and Tony Goldwyn played Max Schumacher. That's funny. Tony Goldwyn as a funny choice. I think that Bryan Cranston is a fine but obvious choice for this role on the stage. Like, I don't know, he's obvious, but I'm sure he'd be good.
He has a good mix of, he can be very boring but also hysterical.
Yeah. I think anyone who's played a equivalent role in a Sorkin project, you have to kind of rule out for doing network. I think Jeff Daniels is not allowed to do this character. No. I think Bradley Whitford, Alec Baldwin, these guys are not allowed to do this character. But I gave you my ideas for Network 2024 the other day, which was Colin Firth as Howard Beale, Jeffrey Rush as Max, Jessica Chastain as Diana, Christian Bale as Duvall.
Yeah.
I still kind of like those ideas. I feel like maybe Colin Firth I could improve and come up with a better idea there. But I feel like we're talking British guy, square head, neck, in his early 60s.
You're going very
literal, like for like. Yeah. But like, I think Colin Firth would kind of kill as Howard Beale. I don't know.
Yeah. Is he a little bit too interesting?
Brian Cox is too old.
Yeah.
Would have been good 20 years ago.
There's someone...
I don't know any other British actors. Hopkins is too old. I think he has to be British or Australian.
Yeah.
Cranston to me feels way too... I don't know.
I think Cranston works.
I think Cranston does work. I think Cranston works better than any of those Sorkin guys I'd mentioned. I don't know. Like, I think it has to be a British guy with a neck. I don't think Hugh Grant would be as good. I don't think he's a good enough actor. I'm struggling to think of other British actors in this generation.
Other British actors.
Like, does he have to be white? Probably, if you want him to kind of reflect the like white angry man news presenter thing.
Yeah, because it probably becomes a more... I feel like having a black anchor...
It becomes racialized.
It becomes actually political.
We've literally just talked about the depiction of the black radical people in this film. So yeah, it would become political. I don't know. I like my idea.
We'll think on it.
Anyway, I like Jeffrey Rush in the William Holden role. I think he's got like good, like craggy face. And then Jessica Chastain is like not an inspired choice.
I suggested Jennifer Lawrence.
Jennifer Lawrence was more age correct.
Yeah.
And I think Jennifer Lawrence and Jeffrey Rush gives probably a better resemblance of this relationship. But God, people were younger back in the 70s.
They were.
And I think Christian Bale...
I think it was 59 and 35.
Something like that, yeah. And then Christian Bale in the Duvall role, I think is kind of spot on. He's got the same weird way of talking.
Put him in the Vice suit.
Put him in the Vice bald cap and it's perfect. Like, I think Adam McKay probably really wants to make a network as well, and he's just not up to the challenge. We'll get the Sorkin conversation out of the way.
Okay.
So obviously, I think there was this like very obvious reaction when the newsroom started in 2012 that the America is not the greatest country in the world was a modern day version of Howard Beale's quote speech, and I feel like this was a false memory from people who don't remember this film and hadn't seen it in a long time. This is something like my parents probably said. But like, Network is not about a guy who makes a speech that's really correct and accurate. No. This is about a crazy person who starts shouting, "I'm mad as hell, I'm not going to take it anymore." So I actually think the Jeff Daniels newsroom opening monologue in the first episode bears absolutely zero resemblance to this film.
No, it's completely different. The point is completely different.
Point's completely
You're
different.
meant to take Jeff Daniels seriously. Yeah. This guy, not at all.
That's just typical Aaron Sorkin shit. Like, now I think that the relationships in that show are very similar to this, though. So the Jeff Daniels, Sam Waterston, Will, and Charlie dynamic in the news anchor, and his sort of the guy who will always stick up for him, the guy who is running the news network and trying to push back against the corporates and all this, is a really, really similar relationship. Yeah. And they've obviously tried to find the closest person they could to William Holden in Sam Waterston, which I think is an inspired choice on a TV budget. And I obviously love that show for all of its flaws, and love that relationship. And I think that Sam Waterston's performance in that show is fucking really great. And especially when he is about to die at the end of the third season, spoiler alert, and he gets so mad at everyone in the office that he just like gets built up to say what he's going to say, and that he just goes, like, he just can't even formulate a word. And then on the other hand, I think that the relationship between the Faye Dunaway character and the Robert Duvall character is super similar to the Amanda Peet and Mr. Man, whose name Weber, Stephen Weber, Jake Weber. Oh God, what is his name? The guy in Studio 60 who plays the network man. His name is Stephen Weber. And they have this similar dynamic where she's like, "I've got all these ideas. I've got so many ideas," and then in that show she has a romance with Bradley Whitford's character, which is played more straight and positive than this affair in this film. But anyway, you can see that Aaron Sorkin's been pulling from this film in lots of his work, and he obviously really wants to be perceived as a modern day Paddy Chayefsky, and that's fine. He's got his fucking praise, and he's now an equally complicated figure politically, I would say.
Yes.
But I do like both of those shows, and I like the elements of Network that reminds me of those shows, although Network is obviously a bit more sophisticated, at least based on when it was made. Faye Dunaway in this movie, I think, is an actress I'll have more to say about on future episodes when we talk about something like Bonnie and Clyde, which is kind of an ultimate boy party, big doubleheader, two major stars movie.
Two names in the title, even.
It's in the title, but she is probably got like the most to do in this film, and she is really great in it. I think she's got a great, perfect calculated, calibrated vibe of really awful, and has a terrible perspective on the world, and wants to make the world a worse place, but is also...
But you can see why she's like incredibly desirable.
Absolutely. She's so charismatic, and she carries so much presence when she walks into the room, and you can see why all the men are instantly transfixed by everything she has to say and all of this. So she really gets away with it. It's great. She is... kind of in the middle of a great run right here. She is 2 years previously actually in The Towering Inferno with not only Paul Newman and Steve McQueen, but with William Holden. The Towering Inferno is a very, very much must-needed boy party episode, because it is the film that invented the entire concept of billing one person on the bottom left and another person on the top right to stop anyone feeling like they're not first billed. So we're going to have to discuss that very soon. William Holden said, "Please, I want to be included in that billing situation too." And they said, "Oh, fuck off." Faye Dunaway in that as well. But she's in 3 Days of the Condor, Robert Redford. She's obviously been in Chinatown, 74, Little Big Man in 1970, Thomas Crown Affair in 68. Like, this is a great run of the last 7 or 8 years she's been on, where she's worked with all the best leading men. And this is probably her most substantial role as like the lead of a film to date. She, in 1981, actually plays Joan Crawford from Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, and other classic films. She plays her in Mommy Dearest, a basically biopic of Joan Crawford, and that's a funny case. They didn't do biopics in the 80s, really. It's funny that she was in one. She won her Oscar for this. She has kind of like had a weird last couple of decades where she has not retired, but she only appears in garbage. It's really weird. She like doesn't do anything good. She pops up in shit like The Bye Bye Man very briefly, something called The Man Who Drew God, which was, that was Franco Nero's movie starring Kevin Spacey, which she made in Italy 2 years ago. Like, she shows up and does shit.
She probably like, these all sound like films where she can show up and do the bare minimum and or show up to set for like 3 days
maybe and just hang out with her friends and do it in places she wants to be. I think
yes.
Like, she has a reputation for being a bit hard to work with, which I always take with a massive grain of salt in the case of any woman in the film industry, because obviously these women were pushing back against unimaginable forces of misogyny in the 1960s, 70s, and today, and difficult behavior is more often than not just them, standing up for themselves.
Yeah.
But the Faye Dunaway being hard to work with thing does seem to kind of hang over her to this day as a cloud. Now, the most recent thing Faye Dunaway did that I know anything about is that she, of course, famously announced the Best Picture winner as La La Land in 2017.
That was her.
With Warren Beatty, her Bonnie and Clyde co-star. We'll do a full analysis of that episode when we do our Bonnie and Clyde show. Yeah. But she's, of course, the one who didn't really look properly and just went, La La Land, but it's not her fault. It was the stupid.
It said it on the card.
PricewaterhouseCoopers. It said Emma Stone, La La Land, on the card. Mm-hmm. So, whether she should have stopped and Warren should have stopped and gone, because Warren stopped and went, and then she just went, La La Land. We'll talk about it another time. That's the last thing Faye Dunaway did that anyone ever thought about, anyway. But great actress, great in this film. Glad she won the Oscar. That's that. William Holden, very, very underrated movie star. If we say that Sidney Lumet is a guy who is one of the great directors that no one ever talks about, it's weird. I feel like William Holden, you look at the films he's in and the actors he worked with and all the classics, and you're like, why are there not like more, I don't know, like people don't do impressions of him. He's not included on collages of the greatest movie stars, but like he should be in the category, in the league with Humphrey Bogart and these guys. I don't know.
Was he?
I don't personally enjoy him as much as Jimmy Stewart and Cary Grant, so I'm not going to put him in that league. But like he is such a big star for several decades and is in many classic films. And it is like
he's playing a real downer of a character here.
Like this,
when he was younger, was he a handsome?
Absolutely.
Charming man?
When he was younger, he was the handsome, charming man.
Okay.
He was in Sabrina with Audrey Hepburn and Humphrey Bogart, and when he was in Sabrina, he had an affair with Audrey Hepburn. Like he was handsome guy. The guy. He's also in Audrey Hepburn in Paris When It Sizzles. Now he was Ronald Reagan's best man at his wedding, and I wonder if he was difficult to work with. I wonder was he difficult to work with, and he had an interesting side to him like that. Now, fun fact for you is that the Sean Penn character in Licorice Pizza is generally believed to be William Holden.
Oh, very good.
So that's where William Holden was
at
that time, which is, that film is probably set around when Network was made, right?
Yeah, it's 70s.
And that character in that film, obviously that film is not true, is not based on factual events, but that character is depicted as being a drunk who is hanging out in bars, sleeping with a woman in her early 20s, and is just kind of impressing people on his motorcycle and shit, and is like, I used to be a big star. Now, like, the man was Oscar nominated for Network in the mid 70s, so he was obviously doing pretty well, but he was not quite at the peak that he maybe once was, where he was the star of Sunset Boulevard, Billy Wilder's film. He also looked very different when he was younger. Like, his face actually changed a lot as he got older, and I think his face in Network is so incredible, and I think he's beautiful in this film. Like, his face has so many great wrinkles in it.
I think he's my favorite performance.
I agree. He is my favorite performance. It's such a great character, and you're like so invested in his desperate last ditch attempt to like defend something, which none of the other characters have. Yeah. But he's also so incredibly pathetic in how he gives it.
Yeah, he's trying to cling on to like love as being the last thing that exists.
He's having
real.
A massive midlife crisis.
Yeah.
And as we said, we were laughing at his scene with Beatrice, right, as the wife, where she's like screaming for 2 minutes, completely correct in everything she's saying to him about how he's a terrible husband, and then she says, like, don't you have anything to say? And he's like, no, I have nothing to say. No.
Which is the most infuriating thing imaginable.
Yeah. Like, now, he does say something in this film that I'd like to reference very briefly, which is that he does. I'm not going to give away the exact line because I don't want to give away the answer. He does reference a literal boy party in this film. Boy party has a secondary meaning that we've never said on this podcast. We'll let you watch
it and pick it out.
Yeah, if you can watch Network and figure out, there is a scene in this in which William Holden very explicitly references the situation that is colloquially known as a boy party in my life and in this household. If you want to do your homework and figure that one out, you can write into the podcast. We'll let you know. But like, he gets some of the best dialogue in this, and I love him telling the story twice of the taxi driver on the bridge.
Does Peter Finch tell it the second time?
No, he tells it twice. It's the second time you walk in, he's telling it to everyone in the room. Don't do it, buddy. You're a young man. It's great. He worked with Billy Wilder a bunch. He won his Oscar in 53. So like 50s were his peak. He won his Oscar in 53 for Stalag 17, which is seems like a kind of a proto like MASH type movie. I haven't seen it. It's set in a prisoner of war camp during World War II, and it's like lots of silly stuff and all the guys getting up to hijinks, but then William Holden's character, I think, having maybe like the more serious role. But anyway, his affair with Audrey Hepburn sounds like a delight.
Yeah, I think we need to point out that it's completely understandable that he had an affair with Audrey Hepburn when we see his sex scene in this film.
Oh, absolutely. So the sex scene in this film is one of the best sex scenes ever. It would like the camera follows the two of them
over an entire evening, essentially. Mm-hmm. So they're at the restaurant, they're talking, they move into their car, they start touching, they go into the house, they're taking clothes off, they're in bed. But the entire time this is going on, Faye Dunaway is just talking about work,
and she won't stop talking about TV.
Not stop talking about TV.
And he's like, "Oh, baby," and she's like, "The ratings are down." No, he doesn't say anything. He's silent the entire time and passive.
Like, the two of them are holding each other nude, and she's like, "But her ratings can go up." And like,
And then she very, as she has warned him earlier in the film, she immediately climaxes as soon as they're in bed together and loses interest, and immediately goes back to start talking about TV and ratings and programming. It's incredible.
And he's just kind of too old and lazy to even question.
Exactly, he's just too old. He's it's so funny. He co-stars in The Bridge on the River Kwai with Alec Guinness, and he is in some westerns like The Wild Bunch when he's a bit older, and then that's kind of it. And then in 1981, a couple years after this, he bled to death in his apartment in Santa Monica on my dad's birthday after lacerating his forehead by slipping on a rug while intoxicated and hitting a bedside table. So he seems to have just kind of had issues with drink at this point in his life, and I don't know, I don't want to prescribe anything to him, but anyway, he died very young. Ronald Reagan released a statement and said he had a great sense of personal loss for his longtime friend. But it said William Holden never got involved in politics. I mean, him and Ronald Reagan were contemporaries, so would the world be a better place if William Holden had been president instead of Ronald Reagan? Probably you know what? Not. Probably not. Like, I just don't think actors should ever be president, to be honest. Controversial opinion. Anyway, that's my William Holden spiel. I need to again watch lots more of his films, although I've seen quite a few. Robert Duvall then is not really a lead in this and shouldn't be treated as such, but we do love him. He is still alive and well. I mean, as is Faye Dunaway, but Robert Duvall is still alive and well, 93 years old. Most recently, I saw him in Hustle with Adam Sandler 2 years ago. He's in, of course, my beloved The Judge in 2014.
Is he his dad or one of the coaches?
He is the owner of the team who dies, and then Ben Foster takes it over. Yeah. He, of course, got his most recent Oscar nomination in 2015 for The Judge, which I love.
Oscar nomination for The Judge.
He sure did. Best supporting actor category ever. Ruffalo in Foxcatcher, Simmons in Whiplash, Hawke in Boyhood, Edward Norton in Birdman, and Duvall in The Judge. That's the most Lucian ass bullshit fucking category ever.
Probably a lot of stuff in there people hate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But he won Best Actor in 1983 for a movie called Tender Mercies, where he plays a washed up country music singer. I've never seen that, but of course he's great, and he's in lots of great movies, and we love Robert Duvall. He's great. And I recently watched The Conversation again, and he shows up uncredited as like a surprise, like an hour and a half into the conversation, as sort of the closest thing it has to a villain, and you're like, oh my god, Duvall's in this. It's great.
Yeah, this is a great film for people who like the Town podcast.
Exactly.
It's just like
it is. It's just people with the worst priorities just bickering over numbers and data. It's fantastic. It is not an underrated film by any means. It got Oscar nominations and won 3 acting Oscars. The only other films to do that are Everything Everywhere All at Once and A Streetcar Named Desire. Jason Robards, the Brendan Fraser of his day, disrupting that. It is on every list of the greatest films ever made, and everybody thinks it's great. So I don't feel like I need to like stick up for it. Similar to The Apartment last week. This is a masterpiece that is agreed universally as such. It is not controversial to say so. So I don't feel the need to stick up for it. But it really is as good as everyone says.
You saw it in cinema recently?
I saw it in the cinema 2 weeks ago.
How was the screening? Full?
Yeah, full, and everyone laughed.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
it was the small screen in the IFI, but everybody was laughing. Everyone thought it was hilarious. It's
good.
a fucking
I think that's
very
a reasonably good sign.
funny film. So finally, Sidney Lumet would be 100 this year. He was born in June 1924. Listen to this list of films, folks, and Shane can chime in on the ones he's seen because this is just ridiculous. His first film is 12 Angry Men, 1957. You watched this the other night. What were your thoughts?
It's like
it's efficient, right?
It's like film number 1.
Yeah, it is.
It is. It's the default movie.
Yes, the default movie. Yes.
Yeah.
One room. Henry Fonda, Sidney Lumet, a court case.
It's great. They find 12 white guys that all look incredibly different. That's great.
All the basics are in there.
It's incredibly dynamic for something that's set in one room.
Yeah.
It's tense. Like it's.
I never have a real urge to rewatch it. Like it's no network. But
it's a very easy watch.
Yeah.
Like incredibly easy.
It's a good classic film for people who find it hard to watch black and white classic
like
films.
if the film came out pretty much word for word as a modern day version of it, like I don't think people would care. Yeah. Because it's too simple. It's like if this is the first of its kind, then it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And it probably inspired an awful lot of courtroom / jury.
Well, just wait till you see Jim Sheridan's Ian Bailey movie. Oh. the new 12 Angry Men.
Yeah, it's just like the most remarkably consistent what you think it's going to be film, and it kind of delivers on all aspects of it.
Our business studies teacher in transition year said it was her favorite film, and I was like, yeah, it's a real like person who wants to sound like they watch classic films as favorite classic film. I don't know.
And it's like it's remarkably accessible.
Oh, it's so accessible, yeah.
5 stars.
5 stars. 1960, he directs. Think of all the actors this guy works with.
Yeah.
Henry Fonda, 1957. 1960, he directs Marlon Brando in The Fugitive Kind. 1964, he directs Rod Steiger in The Pawnbroker. In 1964, he makes another film in 1964, a little film called Fail Safe. Fail Safe will have you sitting on the brink of eternity.
Oh. I think this is one of my favorite films.
Is Fail Safe better than Network?
They're different.
I think it might be. They're different. I think they're both.
They're
both among the 25 greatest films ever made.
I don't think it's unreasonable for me to like quote Failsafe as my favorite film.
I don't think so at all. No, we're gonna watch Failsafe again very soon. We watched it once a few weeks ago and it blew us away. We're gonna have to watch it again. It's unbelievable. For those of you who don't know, Failsafe is a movie about the 90 minutes before a nuclear bomb hits.
By accident.
Hits Moscow by accident. Henry Fonda plays the fictional United States president. He's on the phone and he has to sort it out.
He's basically on the phone to the Russian president like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do it. And what can we do to make up for it? And Walter Matthau plays this like Ted Cruz type guy who's like, I told you this would happen. It's a phenomenal film. In 1965, he directs Sean Connery in The Hill. I think he makes a lot of weird stuff. 1972, he directs James Mason in a film called Child's Play, not to be confused with the Chucky Child's Play. Then 1973, his very fruitful partnership with Al Pacino begins with Serpico. In 1974, he directs Agatha Christie adaptation Murder on the Orient Express. 75, he directs Dog Day Afternoon, which is incredible, which is Al Pacino, John Cazale. It is a transgender themed bank robbery thriller with Al Pacino. It is extraordinary. 1975. The year after, he does Network. 1978, he directs Michael Jackson and Diana Ross in the musical of The Wiz, which is a terrible film. But like, keep in mind the list of actors I've gotten through so far. Yeah. Michael Jackson, add him to that list. 1981, he directs Christopher Walken in Prince of the City, which I'm mixing that up with another film. Sorry, I mixed up King of New York, Prince of the City. Prince of the City is Treat Williams. Then in 1982, he directs Paul Newman in The Verdict. Then in 1986, he directs Jane Fonda and Jeff Bridges in The Morning After. In 88, he directs River Phoenix in Running on Empty. Then we've got Family Business with Matthew Broderick and Dustin Hoffman. Then we've got his final two films. 2006, Find Me Guilty, starring Vin Diesel and Peter Dinklage, and his final film, 2007, Philip Seymour Hoffman and Ethan Hawke in Before the Devil Knows You're Dead. So the man has gone on a long journey from 1957 to 2007. Perfect 50-year career where he directs Henry Fonda, Al Pacino, Marlon Brando, Michael Jackson, Vin Diesel, and Philip Seymour Hoffman. Just a career that I love to explain to people who don't know anything about cinema history or American directors, because people cannot comprehend that the same director could have worked with all of those guys. It's just magnificent. So long live Sidney Lumet, a wonderful filmmaker. Many films there that he's directed that I have not seen and would love to see, and just banger after banger, to be honest.
I've seen three of them are
they're
5-star films.
Yeah, all bangers. Yeah, so there's probably 5 to 7 5-star films in there, which for me puts him among the like 5 or 6 best American directors easily. And he is underappreciated. But he wrote a book called Making Movies that people love and is often cited as a great source for starting out your career in film directing. Mm-hmm. And also he never wrote films. So he's very much a director who approaches everything from a directorial perspective and doesn't talk about his career in the context of writing characters and stories. It's always about the camera and the sound and the
he has such
he's so practical.
Outrageous sense of editing and pacing and speed and like
getting in and out as efficiently as possible.
There's not a hint of filler in any of these films.
No, not at all. And
my favorite thing about him from the 3 films I've seen is the way he ends films.
Mm-hmm.
Failsafe ends in the most devastating fashion possible.
Yeah.
It just ends.
Yeah.
Network ends with there's a discussion. All the main characters except Peter Finch are sitting in a room and are like, he's losing it, what'll we do? And they're like, we'll kill him.
And he's dead within 2 minutes.
Then it cuts to him on his show getting shot in the head.
Yeah, immediately.
The credits roll in.
He gets killed by, what's the name of that character who kills him?
Ahmed, the great
Ahmed Khan.
Ahmed Khan, yeah.
The great Ahmed Khan, played by Arthur Burgart.
Just shoots him live on television.
That's brilliant.
And 12 Angry Men wraps up nicely as well.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Great. Well done. Good job.
Cool guy.
Yep.
I think
so.
Yeah.
He tried to stop Chayefsky from the anti-Palestinian thing. So he said that's blacklisting. All right. So he sounds like a cool guy. Do you want to quiz me quickly on the box office? Highest grossing films of 1976. Now we looked at the Oscar nominations, so I remember.
What's number one?
Number one's gonna be Rocky.
Indeed.
Okay. What's number 2?
Number 2 has an exclamation mark in it.
Number 2 has an exclamation mark in it. Avanti.
Okay, there's something wrong here because this is a 27-minute film.
Oh. And it's the number 2 highest grossing film in 1976.
And the distributor is IMAX Films.
Oh, no, I don't know what that is. What is this?
This is called To Fly. Early IMAX documentary about the development of human flight. Don't know why that's number 2.
It must have been re-released in the last couple of years and made modern money.
It must have.
It must have just made like enough modern money to push it over.
Yeah, very bizarre.
Silly. All right.
Number 3, a film we may cover on this podcast.
Film we may cover on this podcast.
We kind of have.
From the 70s. We kind of have covered it on the podcast.
A little bit.
What do you mean we've kind of covered it?
You'll know what I mean.
We either cover the film or we don't.
Yeah, you'll know.
Have we done an episode on this film?
In a sense.
Is it a remake or a sequel to something we've done? Or have we not
You're in the right.
What?
You're in the right.
We've kind of covered it in this podcast. I feel like our episodes are pretty straightforward. Like,
no, you'll know when I say it.
Oh no, I don't know.
It's a boy party. It's a very clear boy party. Like no ambiguity as to there.
But you're being ambiguous about whether or not we've covered it on the podcast.
We haven't kinda.
We have kinda.
Not specifically, but we have covered it. The idea.
We've covered the idea of it.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is stressing me out. I don't know. Give me a clue.
Let's see.
I need have I reviewed it on Letterboxd or anything?
Yep.
Yeah?
We watched it together.
We watched it together in this house.
Yeah. You watched more of it than I did. I think I only caught the last bit of it.
I don't know.
And I loved the ending of it.
What's my review?
The final scene of this is incredible. Good Lord.
The final scene of this incredible. Good Lord.
I don't understand the negative reviews on here. There's so much to like in this.
I don't know what this is.
Even if it's a bit plotting.
I have no idea what this is.
Do you want me to tell you?
Yeah.
This is 1976, A Star is Born.
1976, A Star is Born. Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good film.
And we have
I understand now what your trick. Yes, I understand. Very good. Very good.
Next one.
Okay.
Monkey.
King Kong.
King Kong.
This is the Jeff Bridges, Jessica Lange, I suppose. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've not seen. Don't care.
Next one is a film I haven't heard of.
Okay.
And
what's it called?
It's got a color in it.
It's the patch of blue.
Nope.
Grass is always greener.
Arthur Hiller.
I know Arthur Hiller, but I don't know what the film is.
Gene Wilder.
Gene Wilder.
Jill Clayburgh.
Gene Wilder. What's the color?
And Richard Pryor. Sorry?
What's the color?
Silver.
Silver. No, I don't know.
Silver Streak.
Sure. Yeah. No interest in any Wilder Pryor films.
By
really.
train, by plane, by the edge of your seat. It's the most hilarious suspense ride of your life.
I can't imagine that's that funny.
Yeah. Next one, a newspaper drama of sorts.
All the President's Men?
Indeed.
Cool.
All right, we'll do like two more.
Yeah.
Don't know what this one is. Sounds like it could be scary. It is a Richard Donner film.
Oh, Richard Donner, director of Superman and The Goonies. Yeah.
Oh, it's got Mr. G. Peck.
This is The Omen.
This is The Omen.
Guess who was in Omen 2? William Holden.
William Holden.
Found that out today, yeah.
What is that about?
A little scary boy possessed by the devil.
Ah, yeah, of course.
And Gary Peck plays like a priest who has to deal with him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Then we got The Enforcer, Midway, The Bad News Bears.
Yeah.
Pink Panther Strikes Again.
Yeah, okay.
Taxi Driver is in there, number 15.
Yeah, well, that's a good film.
And Carrie.
Did you know Taxi Driver is a good film?
Network, number 19 on the year.
You know what? If Network was the 19th highest grossing film of the year today, we'd all be thrilled. So
sold 11 million tickets.
That's like if Steve Jobs was the 19th highest grossing film of 2015.
This made 130 million
in today's money. Yeah, that's a massive hit.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, great.
Go watch Network.
Go watch Network. The credits game. Oh,
we're doing it.
Yeah, we're going to do the credits game. Yeah, there's 4 actors here. So
all right.
I am going to quiz you on. But I picked one like a doable one. Like,
doable.
Okay. So I'm going to read chain the credits, the cast list rather of a film starring one of these actors from back to front according to Letterboxd and see how fast he can guess the movie. The year I won't even ask if he wants it because he always does. The year is 2012.
It's always going to be 2012.
So you're getting an easy one here. The year is 2012. All right, here is your cast list. Terry Clark, CJ Ramirez, Scott A. Martin, Sophie Guest, Peter Gannon, Joe Coyle, Delilah Pickert, Julia Yorks, Denver Millard, Dylan Cussman, Alexia Fast, Michael Raymond James, Nicole Forrester, Joseph Sikort. This could have been a more fun one. Vladimir Sizov, Robert Duvall.
Is that everyone?
No, there's now all the good names are coming.
Right.
Now there's like 7 names that you'll know.
Yeah.
Robert Duvall, Jai Courtney. Do you want me to keep going?
Mr. Captain Boomerang.
Captain Boomerang.
Captain Boomerang.
Speaking of Australian actors who will win an Oscar after they die.
Nice. Put Jai Courtney in the Network remake.
Yeah, exactly.
One.
Werner Herzog. Acclaimed documentary filmmaker.
Okay.
And occasional actor. Keep going.
Yeah.
David Oyelowo. He'd be my pick if I was doing Black Howard Beale. I was going to say him earlier.
Okay.
Actually. Keep going.
Yeah.
Ricky Jay, Richard Jenkins. Keep going. 2 more.
Yeah.
Rosamund Pike. And now we have one big male star as our number 1.
Big male star.
Yeah.
Rosamund Pike.
Mm-hmm. Rosamund Pike is the love interest.
It's just like based on a book.
Very much so. Couldn't be more based on a book. Nothing has ever been more based on a book than this movie. Like, you'll know what I mean.
Is the lead a kid?
No. The lead is a tough man.
A tough man based on a book.
Oh, yeah. So very based on a book.
Is this Tom Cruise, Jack Reacher?
This is Jack Reacher, directed by Christopher McQuarrie, starring Tom Cruise.
Our boy.
The law has limits, full stop. He does not, full stop.
He does not.
That's it, everybody. Thanks for Robert. I don't remember Robert Duvall being in that film. Anyway, thank you for tuning in to a 1-hour episode of Boy Party.
Do not impugn my coxmanship.
Do not impugn his coxmanship.
Please.
Thank you for tuning in, and visit boypartypod.com. Follow Boy Party Pod on all social media. Yeah. I am in the United States right now as you're listening to this, so please hope that I do not get detained or killed in a plane crash.
For your reviews on
because if you want to hear what The Instigators is like next week, you're gonna have to make sure I get home okay.
Make sure you don't talk about your blacklisting comments in this podcast.
Coming up, we got The Instigators, we got Roman Holiday, and then coming up in September, we got Joker Month. So both Oscar-winning Australian dead actors will be getting discussed in this podcast within a matter of weeks. So get excited. Thanks so much for tuning in, and like Howard Beale, I'm going to
kill myself,
drop dead in the middle of the stage. Bye.